By mid-morning, temperatures over the Amazon forest begin to soar. The stifling humidity makes a modest 86 degrees Fahrenheit unbearable. The sun's heat pierces through the Amazon's canopy. In the dry season, the colossal Brazil nut's dense crown casts a cool shadow over the jungle floor during the hottest time of the day. It's the protection an army of leafcutter ants needs against the blazing sun while they work. Like rush hour traffic, they speed along a thoroughfare, trekking 300 feet across the forest floor, up a nearby tree to their work site. And then they haul their freshly cut leaves back to their nest. But these leaves aren't for eating. The ants eat fungus, which they cultivate in their underground nest. The leaves fertilize the fungal garden. In return, the decomposing plant material nourishes the earth in which the tree grows. But the leafcutters are fussy farmers and only target specific trees according to the fungus's needs. During the dry season, the Brazil nut is not to the fungus's taste. Keeping their nest healthy requires dirty work. So the colony has specialized garbage collectors. Piece by piece, they constantly remove decaying organic matter from all around the nest and haul it to dedicated garbage chambers. Some spots are so contaminated, the ants remove the soil as well. All that remains is a hole in the ground. In June, Mother Nature embellishes the emerald sea of trees with blotches of bright yellow blossoms. The Amazon's acacias are in bloom. Water levels in Las Piedras River have dropped considerably, exposing huge sandbanks. These islands make it easier for animals like the capybara to cross. A large flock of sand-colored nighthawks uses the safety of a sandbank to roost during the day. And in the dry season, caiman emerge to bask on the exposed riverbank. Where the capybara relieved itself, a buzz of bees and butterflies lap up the nutrients. All the sunbittern has to do is snatch a nibble from the dance of fluttering insects. At this time of the year, ripe fare is harder to find for most of the Amazon's fruit lovers. All that's on offer are unripe crops. The Brazil nut's cocos are still immature and, for most frugivores, inedible. To see them through these lean times, the capuchins target trees that bear fruit throughout the year. Beneath the Brazil nut's lofty stem, is a grove of palm trees, the troops' preferred foraging spot. Monkeys are the only ones able to tear open the tough palm fruit with their sharp fangs and dexterous hands. The dominant male eats first, followed by his most favored females. When a subordinate tries to steal a bite, he gets an earful. Best look for grub somewhere else. Maybe there's something delectable in here? For a capuchin, an egg is a yummy prize. But alas, the nest is empty. It's early August, and the Brazil nut bears a strange new hump. A mound of dirt riddled with a maze of furrows. With the tree's fallen fruit devoured, the conehead termites have to find another residence. And where better to build a new home than on the trunk of the mighty provider? The workers are responsible for this architectural masterpiece, now home to almost 800,000 termites. To build this structure, a worker uses digested wood and cements it into place with its own feces. As amber dusk slowly deepens, the day's blazing orb retreats, granting the moon a chance to shine. Gaps in the jungle reveal a bright blue cosmos. The waning moon lights up the towering Brazil nut's overgrown branches. At its base, between the looming tree's roots, a throng of little hairy legs creep from the safety of their burrow. This is the home of a family of Goliath bird-eating tarantulas, the largest spiders on Earth. The female dug this burrow herself when she was just a spiderling. It stretches for almost 5 feet underground and cradles more than 40 of her furry offspring. The sensory hairs on her feet detect the slightest vibration, alerting her to a stir in the leaf litter. The cockroach doesn't stand a chance. But it's barely in her jaws when the little ones start to mob her. She has her hands full, keeping hold of dinner and controlling the kids. With an 8-inch leg span, she's not yet the biggest bird-eating spider, but with time, she'll grow up to 12 inches across. When another beetle wanders into her territory, she surrenders the cockroach to her greedy offspring. let them fight it out between themselves. It's now April. The wet season in Tambopata is drawing to a close. A pair of green-winged macaws have constructed their nest in a nearby ironwood tree. Inside, a young chick waits for the rain to stop so that its parents can bring it dinner. Its insatiable appetite will keep both Mom and Dad busy over the coming weeks. As day submits to night, the breath of twilight blows to flame the evening skies. Between sunset and the pale moonrise, the jungle grows blacker than ever. But the darker the night, the more radiant the Milky Way that flows across the sky. In the witching hour, Tambopata's creatures of the night awake. It's their turn to scour the thicket. In the brush at its base, the ancient Brazil nut tree bears witness to the art of creation. There are few things on earth more beautiful than the simple complexity of a spider's web. The spiral-shaped masterpiece of a tropical orb weaver can stretch as far as 20 feet. When she's done, all this huntress needs to do is wait for dinner to come to her. To avoid getting trapped in her own snare, she carefully pulls each of her legs through her fangs to scrape off bits of glue and silk. And eureka! Easy prey. But this nocturnal wasp is armed with a needle-like stinger. Wrapping this parcel is a delicate affair, as she tries to steer clear of its lethal injection. She takes her prize to the center of her web, where she drains it at leisure. Her silky snare foils several more casualties, from tiny moths and beetles to a gargantuan dragonfly. But with a bit of willpower and enough silk, nothing's too big to conquer. Her web is so effective, it can even trap larger prey, such as bats. Between the Brazil nut's buttresses, a tiny rain frog is looking for a mate. To keep moist, it hops from pool to pool and listens for the distinct chirp of a female. She must be close. But her calls draw him into dangerous territory. the rain frog's night of romance is over before it's even begun. It's a stomach-churning conclusion for the squirming Casanova. This horned hunter's greedy disposition and formidable mouth has earned it the nickname the Pac-Man Frog. Even snakes and large rodents fall prey to its gaping jaws. Break of day drapes the jungle in a shroud of mist. It's May, the beginning of the dry season. Despite its name, it still rains a lot. The key difference is that the flooded jungle basin now begins to dry. By now, the Brazil nut tree has cast off all of this year's mature cocos. All that remains is next year's unripe crop. The warmer weather inspires the tree to grow too fast for its own skin, and its bark splits. To seal this wound, the pillar of strength oozes a sticky resin that will harden over time. The tiny river of caramel-colored gum entices an array of small sweat bees. The bees aren't collecting the resin for food or to create honey. They use it to construct their hive. A worker rolls pieces of the gummy goop into a little ball and attaches it to her hind legs. Once she's loaded as much of the tacky toffee as she can carry, she heads back to the colony. At the nest, the bees use the resin to create a cement-like substance called propolis, with which they build their hive. This glue also has medicinal properties that help fight bacteria, viruses, and fungi within the colony. They spread it all over their bodies and throughout the hive to ward off parasites. In effect, the health of the sweat bees depends on the Brazil nut tree. September marks the end of the dry season in Tambopata National Reserve. The early morning mist quickly submits to the sun's sweltering rays. The male red howler monkey's ferocious roar has earned him several mates. In this troop, he's king, the only adult male allowed to reproduce. A talent he's well versed in. Toddlers of various ages cling to their mothers, but they can't protect their little ones against everything. This infant is infected with botfly larvae. The youngster will have to endure 12 months of excruciating discomfort until the fly's pupae fall out. In some cases, an infestation can be fatal. By mid-October, both the capuchins and squirrel monkeys are welcoming new members into their ranks. And more fruit-loving monkeys mean more fertilizer for the Brazil nut tree. But the young squirrel monkeys are more interested in games. Playing together is essential training to help them survive in the Amazon. It teaches the little ones about their role within the troop and strengthens bonds. But when a forest falcon drops in, playtime is over. It's safer to stick with the pack. By November, the river swells with summer snowmelt from the Andes. The Brazil nut softens its skies with thousands of flowers. Clusters of creamy blooms embellish the tree. Alongside them, last year's cocos are almost mature. The flower's pollen remains hidden beneath a hood-like cap. There's only one insect strong enough to lift the hood to reach the sweet nectar inside. Carpenter bees are the Brazil nut's only pollinators. The bees waste no time in servicing the tree. Each of the tiny flowers blooms for just one day. Those that open before dawn leave the giant tree's grasp in the afternoon. Soon, a carpet of cream-colored petals covers the earth at its base. It's a banquet laid out for an array of rainforest inhabitants, from the tiniest bee to a savvy tortoise. Even the leafcutters get in on the action. The flowers are just too good to go to waste. The ants cut the blossoms into pieces. Everything from petal to plume. Surely these will be to the fungus's liking. In January, a familiar thud hits the jungle floor once more. After developing for 15 months, the Brazil nut's crop is finally ripe. The annual cycle begins anew. The forgetful gardener buries his nuts. The castañero gathers the harvest. And soon, new life shelters within the husks. The green-winged macaw's chick has fledged and grown into its adult plumage. It's now ready to join the rest of the flock. But it's never too old for a good grooming from mom and dad. For 500 years, this forest titan has sustained all those that enter its realm. But its future is far from secure. Tambopata's protected reserve is threatened. Illegal logging and gold mining encroach at its margins. As this habitat becomes smaller, the links that bind this ecosystem together will be severed. This ancient giant that has endured for centuries could be one of the last Brazil nut trees to reach majestic heights. With luck, the pillar of strength will remain rooted in this paradise, guarded against the greed of man. This towering titan will prevail, for it truly is a hard nut to crack. When you think of a Brazil nut, what pops to mind? The mottled oval treats you buy in bulk at your local grocer? Their buttery yet crunchy texture? Or do you consider where these delectable nuggets are born? Their odyssey begins in the heart of the Amazon. Their creator, an unmovable mast rooted in the untamed jungles of Peru. A 500-year-old Brazil nut tree, nearly 160 feet tall. For it to reproduce, this pillar of strength has forged an alliance with some unexpected allies. It relies on a forgetful forager to plant its seeds throughout the jungle, while a tiny insect is the only creature strong enough to open and pollinate its flowers. The Brazil nut's relationship with all who enter its realm is as strong as the tree's robust buttresses. An unwavering titan, this tree is a hard nut to crack. It's January, the peak of the wet season, in the Tambopata National Reserve. A large stretch of protected Amazon rainforest in southeastern Peru. This Eden for wildlife, 160 miles east of the Andes Mountains, is one of the most biodiverse regions on Earth. It's also one of the wettest. Relentless downpours transform the low-lying jungle into a sodden swamp. But these saturated soils are no place for a Brazil nut to take root. It must make its stand on higher, drier ground. This tenacious titan towers over the jungle from the safety of an elevated outcrop. Brazil nuts are the largest and longest living trees in the Amazon, but this one is a legend among giants. Majestic buttresses, 10 feet high, support the tree's lumbering frame. These structures are a rare sight on a Brazil nut, a testament to the tree's endurance for 5 centuries. Above its weighty pedestal, the stout trunk bears no branches for the first 100 feet. This powerful post leads to a lavish crown adorned with lush epiphytes, plants that soak up the moisture from the clouds. In January, the Brazil nut casts its rock-hard fruit to the jungle floor. For a brown agouti, the sound of the Brazil nut pod falling is music to his ears, and he comes rushing. But a 4-pound missile can be a deadly encounter. 160 feet up, hundreds of crude brown baubles decorate the tree's crown. These enormous fruits, each 6 inches across, are locally known as cocos. It takes about 15 months for each pod to mature, which means as this year's ripe crop begins to fall, new fruit have already started to form. Like its namesake, a ripe cocoa is a hard nut to crack. There's only one animal in the Amazon able to penetrate its tough shell: the agouti. Targeting a tiny hole at a pod's base, the large rodent gnaws open the rock-hard casing with its powerful teeth. Each capsule holds about 24 delectable nuts, much more than the rodent can eat in one go. But it's not about to waste the leftovers. The agouti buries the extra seeds in several hiding spots throughout the jungle to keep them all to himself. But the forgetful rodent can't always remember where he stashed his treasures. This is exactly what the tree depends on. Thanks to this absent-minded gardener, some of the nuts germinate where they're buried. But a nearby river limits how far these seeds can be sown. Less than a half-mile from where the Brazil nut stands, Las Piedras River snakes through this never-ending sea of trees. And the agouti won't cross its strong currents. By February, most of the Brazil nut's fruit has fallen to the jungle floor. But just as the tree has allies like the agouti, it also has enemies. An army of conehead termites invades one of the fallen pods. They're fierce seed predators. The lighter, cream-colored workers with round heads excavate tunnels throughout the cocoa, devouring nuts as they go, until finally it's completely hollowed out. The brown-headed soldiers with pointy noses guard the workers as they toil. It's they who give the coneheads their name. When the pods empty, the termites move on to find a new edible home in the shade of the mighty Titan. When it comes to nut harvest season, a colony of these wood-eating nomads can be a real nuisance, both for the agouti and for humans. A local nut harvester, called a castañero, has to collect the Brazil nuts before they spoil or insects get to them. The task requires stamina and a well-sharpened machete. Harvesting nuts is done by hand to help protect the jungle from heavy machinery. Inside the hard pod, each seed is shielded by its own tough husk. For Amazon locals, Brazil nut trees are an essential part of their livelihood. And it's a felony to cut one of them down in Peru, Brazil, and Bolivia. Globally, it's a thriving industry worth $50 million a year. One of the Amazon wet season's daily downpours drenches Tambopata National Reserve, cutting short the Castañeros' morning toil. As if the heavens are weeping, their tears drip from the towering Brazil nut's outstretched limbs. On the jungle floor, the rain fills up the nut collectors' discarded shells. But this forest giant assists in sculpting the clouds. Each day, the tree draws up and releases almost 1,000 liters of water into the air through its leaves. This rainmaker is so influential, its kind affect the weather patterns across the entire continent, making them some of the most powerful trees in the rainforest. A ghostly moan drowns out the thunder. It starts with a low groan and builds to a thunderous roar. It echoes between the Brazil nut's dripping branches, booms through the jungle, and travels 3 miles down the mighty Las Piedras River. The calls come from one of the loudest animals on Earth. A male Peru's red howler monkey. He roars to brandish his power and attract females. A resident flock of green-winged macaws can't escape his din. The animals of Tambopata are used to the howler's cries and these downpours. Here, the wet season officially lasts from November to March, but in reality, it rains throughout the year. The parrots greet the end of the deluge with a good dose of social gabbing. They noisily squawk and scream to check in with other members of the flock. But this pair only have eyes for each other. Macaws are monogamous and extremely lovey-dovey. In this flock, February is breeding season. To show they're ready to mate, the boisterous babblers vigorously groom each other. Soon, these couples will begin to prepare their nests. By March, the Castañeros' pile of empty cocoa shells has grown at the foot of the towering Brazil nut. The perfect hideout for a rainbow boa looking for a place to rest during the day. An alluring aroma interrupts the snake's intended siesta. It follows the scent trail with its flicking tongue, while scanning the leaf litter with heat-sensitive organs along its jaw. But this Suriname horned frog is cold-blooded and has turned camouflage into an art. This female's blotchy brown kaleidoscope blends flawlessly with a Brazil nut's leaf litter. As long as she remains motionless, the boa won't be able to find her. And it moves on. This is her hunting ground. Here, she waits, without moving a muscle, for hours if need be, for an unsuspecting target. The katydid senses something is awry and probes with its antenna. It's within striking range. But this meal isn't worth the effort. The katydid can inflict a painful bite with its powerful mandibles. And if swallowed, the thorny spines on its legs can cause significant damage to the frog's insides. For the Suriname, the waiting game continues. As the tallest tree in the area, the 500-year-old Brazil nut's crown offers the ideal lookout for a harpy eagle, the most powerful raptor in the Amazon. It looks like lunch has arrived. A troop of about 15 tufted capuchin monkeys is out on its daily treasure hunt. Their leader, an alpha male, keeps a stern watch over them. The clan has some strange travel companions. Black-capped squirrel monkeys. Both species devour copious amounts of fruit, but monkeys are messy eaters. As they move through the jungle, they drop half-eaten fodder, which becomes the ideal fertilizer for the Brazil nut. Both capuchins and squirrel monkeys also adore eating insects. The combined troop disturbs more insects as they clamber through the treetops, making them easier to find. More eyes and ears also make it easier to spot a predator. Busted! Their chorus of squeaks and chirps alert everyone to the danger above. The harpy will have to find a meal elsewhere.